Shut up and sit down.
Hello, folks. I'd like to welcome you to Science and Technical Communication, Meeting the Needs of Specific Audiences, Chapter 2. Today, we're going to be talking about audience awareness, how to gauge an audience, how to prepare yourself to speak to specific groups. So, to start with, let's look at the learning objectives here. We want to make sure that what we're going to be doing is we're going to ask the right questions to analyze an audience and purpose. You're going to be able to assess your audience's technical background, consider your audience's cultural background, which is another important factor, identify the appropriate document qualities for your audience, develop an audience, and use profile to guide your work. So we'll start with audience. All technical communication is intended for people who are going to use and react to that information. That audience, you need to understand before you even start writing. You need to identify precisely who's going to be reading that document and understand how that particular audience will use your material. So you sit, if we look here at this graph, as the communicator or the problem solver, and you are providing information that will help your readers to take action. So analyzing your document's audience and purpose, what you want to do is explore all you can about who will use your document, why they're going to use it, and how they will use it. Who's the main audience for this document? Is this going to be a group of peers that you work with within your department? Is it going to be executives that sit and make decisions in the top of your department or in your company? Or is it going to be an audience, just a general audience who is going to be taking this information? You have to understand how to work with each of those. Not to mention dealing with a general audience. Who are you specifically going after here? Is this going to be baby boomers? Is this going to be 18 to 25-year-olds? Is this going to be, you need to understand and develop your program, develop your document in that way. Who else is going to read this document? Who else is likely to read it? Is this a document that's going to go and sit on the desk of one CEO, or is this desk going to be passed around at a meeting? You need to understand whose eyes are going to fall on it. When you do this, you need to understand that although it may fall to a group of peers, it could slip out into the general public as well. So always try to anticipate unintended readers as well. Again, what's your relationship to the audience? Are they going to be peers? Are they going to be a general public audience? Am I familiar with this audience? Are we very familiar? How should I adapt my tone? Things that you need to consider. Are multiple types of relationships involved? Again, are we talking about people just within your department? Are we talking about people in your department and CEO or CFO or people who sit on the board? Are we talking about a general audience that's also going to be involved? You need to discover these things too. What information does this audience need? Obviously, a group of your peers is going to need a different amount of information or a different kind of information than a general audience. A general audience is going to need things a little clearer and less jargon-filled. And how familiar might the audience be with the technical details? Do these readers have varying levels of expertise? Do they have college? Do they have high school? Are we talking about a broad, vast general public, or are we talking about people within your career field? What culture or cultures does your audience represent? This is an important, specifically demographically. Where are you going to be presenting? Where are you going to be speaking? Who are you going to be speaking to? Are you going to be hosting this in front of a board of international clients, or is this going to be something within, in-house? And even then, cultures vary even within house, and it's important to understand how those cultures operate, so as not to be culturally insensitive or make a remark that may cost you in some way. How might cultural differences shape readers' expectations and interpretations? Should I be blunt and direct? Should I be a little bit more indirect? Should I use more metaphors, similes? Should I, these are all things that you should consider. Does this audience prefer to beat around the bush, or should I get straight to the point? Will the material be viewed on a computer, on a phone or tablet, or on paper? All of these things are things that you need to consider. When writing a technical document, you want to keep two audiences in mind. You have the primary audience, and this is the immediate people. These are the folks that you focused on. These are the ones that you specifically chose to write to. And then you have a secondary audience, and these are going to be individuals outside that immediate circle of people who will be needing the information directly. These are people that can also be an unintended audience, okay? These are people who this information may not necessarily be for, but they are in some capacity a decision maker. So your relationship to your readers, consider the following when you assess audience. Are they superiors, colleagues, or subordinates? Now, be careful. Sometimes you can come off in a joking nature, and what you intended to be playful with a subordinate, colleague, or a superior may not be taken that way. And just because you and your superior, your department manager, whoever is in charge, just because you guys go fishing on the weekends and you have beers every Sunday while you're cooking out, and you guys, chew the fat and all insert metaphor here. Even though all that stuff takes place, keep in mind that whatever document that you are addressing here, whatever audience you're going after, remember you have that primary and that secondary audience. So be careful on, if you have pet names, name calling, anything like that, be careful with that kind of stuff, because those people may not be the only ones reading that document. Are they inside or outside of your organization? Again, inside, they're going to typically have a little bit more in-depth knowledge to what's going on. Even people who might be sitting on a board with typical business degrees and whatnot, who may not necessarily be engineers, are still going to have a little bit more of an understanding than a general audience. Do you know them personally? Again, I use the example of the grilling hot dogs or whatever and having beers with your colleagues or superiors. Because you know them personally, you need to treat it as if it's going to be seen by other people. Are they likely to welcome or resist your information? And that's often going to have to do with what that information is going to entail. Is it going to be good news or bad news? So keep in mind that not everybody's going to want to hear what you have to say. Some people are going to be resistant. In that case, you may want to think about how direct or indirect you want to be with the communication. Purpose of your document, you need to spell out precisely what you want your document to accomplish and how you expect readers to use it, your overall purpose. What's the main purpose of this document? Is it for, are you eliciting funding? Is it a long report? Is it a memo? What is the purpose of this document? What other purpose or purposes does that document serve? And what will readers do with this information? Typically, when you give this information, you're asking for some kind of action in return. So what kind of action are you looking for? Primary and secondary purpose. All documents are going to have a primary purpose and a secondary purpose. The primary purpose is the document's main goal, It's going to be to either inform, to instruct, or to persuade. That secondary purpose is going to be what else you want that document to potentially do or represent. And it could be any number of things. Let's say that you are proposing better, safer bridges, and you want to pass this primarily to a more general audience, but then that secondary purpose, though, may be budget concerns. What are the costs? What are the prices? What are the things that are going on? So maybe you could list that in there as well and make sure that that secondary purpose is there. Also consider how and why the document will be used by others. Do my readers simply want to learn facts or understand some concepts, which is what this class we will be doing. We will be doing a public document where you are going to take information that is very technical in nature, and you are going to be, I'm not going to say simplifying, you're going to be translating that for a more general, broader audience. So your readers are simply going to be learning some facts and hopefully combat some form of misinformation that they may have picked up on that topic or subject before. It's called a popular report, by the way. Will they use my information in making some type of decision? Typically, that's what a proposal is all about. So, yeah, consider these things. Will people act immediately on the information, or do we want to have them kind of like take a back seat, wait a second, if all else falls through, then we jump? Do they need step-by-step instructions? In my audience's view, what is most important about this document? Is it going to be the clarity? Is it going to be the specifics of the information? Is it going to be budget concerns? Is it going to be labor costs? Is it going to be labor involved? Is it going to be the time frame? All these things. So you need to assess your audience's technical background and decide whether the document should be highly technical, semi-technical, or non-technical in nature. So discuss or try to discern who's going to use my document. If it's going to be experts, you know that these are going to be, peers that you work with and things. It can be highly technical. You can just load it full of figures, facts. It can be full of jargon, all kinds of good stuff. Informed persons, board members, CEOs, CFOs, COOs, whatever, people who make decisions at the top, the brass, who have business management or whatever kind of skills, may not necessarily be engineers. However, they will still have a general understanding. You may need to explain those facts and figures a little bit so that they get some clarity on that. You're going to use a little less jargon unless it's a company-wide accepted jargon that everyone kind of goes with. So there's a bit of a fluctuation in the common knowledge there. When it comes to laypersons, there is no common knowledge, okay? When it comes to your field of study, there's no common knowledge. You want to go non-technical. When the facts and figures come up there, you want to explain them in the easiest terms that they can comprehend. I'm not going to say simple, because simple downplays your audience and makes it sound like they are less than. And that's not what technical communication is about. We're not about shouting from the top of our towers down at people and laughing when they don't get it. Okay, it's about clarity. Okay, think of mom and dad when you're explaining this stuff. Consider how cultural differences might create misunderstanding in any situation and seek and appropriate an approach that bridges these differences. Information needs and preferences often are culturally determined. So you have, again, that concept of being direct versus being indirect. Depending on the culture that you are in, some people love this heuristic approach of you leading them to the point of it all without actually really stating it. Using a formal tone versus using a friendly tone. Notice how friendly doesn't necessarily mean unprofessional, okay? Friendly can be a little bit more laid back, a little bit cool, and not necessarily comes with the baggage of this just uber formal presentation. But at the same time, you're not just leaning up against the wall and kind of shooting from the hip. Prioritizing individual contributions versus prioritizing group contributions, okay? Again, think about the culture you're in. Are you within an individualist culture or a collectivist culture? Do they believe in the group as a whole, as in, say, Japan might? Or is it more of an individualist approach where we are all these unique snowflakes, such as in the United States? Readers approach any document with certain preferences, length, and details. Were you asked to keep it short? Keep that in mind, or to be comprehensive. Are people more interested in conclusions and recommendations, or do they want everything spelled out? Typically, you're going to have to gauge that audience as it goes, okay? And a good way to do that is find a proofreader that is along those levels, okay? Find a proofreader who may not necessarily be an expert in your field. Format and medium, do they want it in a letter, a memo, an email, a short report, a long report, formal report with supplements, you name it. Consider these things and how they want it. And tone, do they expect your tone to be super formal, semi-formal, or informal? And again, informal is not unprofessional. Do not start using derogatory language, slang, or nastiness within that document. Try to avoid words like stuff and things, and try to be a little bit more precise with your language. Due date and timing. Is there a deadline? Typically, there always is. How can you break down the deadline into milestones? Will any of your information become outdated if you wait too long to complete the document? And expediency is key when it comes to this kind of stuff, because we are seeing innovation all the time. By the time you actually finish your document, is it going to really be cutting edge? Budget concerns, does your document have a production budget? If so, how much, and where can you save the most money? It's all about saving money for a company, and it's all about saving money for a customer. So consider those things. Profit versus expenditures. Sorry about that. Develop an audience and use profile. All right. In order to focus sharply on your audience, purpose, and the many factors discussed in the chapter, develop your own vision of the audience and use profile sheet and fill it out completely. And you'll find that in the document that I have attached on Canvas to this section, to this module. This sheet will keep you focused as you write and help you not to digress. Picture exactly what these readers need and how they expect to use your document. Learn all you can about who's going to use your document. In planning your document, work from a clear statement of audience and purpose, and consider your audience's technical background. These are key important guidelines to follow. When you don't exactly know who is going to be the document, you really want to just picture a general audience, okay? If you don't know if this is going to be expert, non-expert, semi-expert, or whatever, just go with general, okay? That's always a good rule of thumb. Consider your readers' cultural backgrounds, anticipate your audience's reactions, anticipate audience questions. This can be a little difficult. Another great thing to do with this is put this before several different eyes and let them ask you questions, okay? That can help you anticipate what the broader audience is going to ask. It's not going to be perfect, never going to be perfect, but you can try to roll with the punches as best you can. Anticipate your audience's preferences. So review questions for this chapter. 1, what's the definition of audience? 2, what is the difference between a primary audience and a secondary audience? 3, what is the definition of purpose? 4, what is a document's primary purpose versus its secondary purpose or purposes? And 5, what are the 3 types of audience in terms of their technical background? 6, what do the 3 types of technical audiences want? 7, what are 3 areas you need to consider regarding cultural differences? 8, what are the audience's preferences you should consider when writing a document? 9, what should you ask yourself about tone? 10, why should you develop an audience and use profile sheet? Okay, that's going to do it for this lecture. If you have any questions, post down in the comments or check out the discussion board on Canvas. Thanks for listening, and I will get to you guys and see you guys again on the next presentation. So take care till then.